sometimes I can't practice insanity. Like financially, at least financially, and this applies to other areas, but it's like if I'm not tithing, I'm not working kingdom principles, I'm broke. Trying to figure it out myself. I'm doing all the hustling, grinding, and everything like that. Working every business strategy, working, even working a job, a 9 to 5. I know when the money coming in. I know the check. I even might have a little budget, whatever. And I'm still not making it. Or I'm frustrated with just my financial position. It's like at some point, particularly like if you know that tithing's right. Like that's the key in this. Like if you know tithing's right. Now, if you don't know, you don't know, right? Cool. You can't do better if you don't know better. But if you know better and you ain't doing it, and you see like what you doing ain't working. At some point, you just got to say, yo, I got to try, like,
do something different.
Right. Just do something different.
Welcome back to the Christ Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Calvin.
I'm Erica.
And today we are joined by a very special guest. Trevon is in the house.
Yes.
How you doing, brother?
Man, I'm better now. It's good to be here, man.
Good.
Really, it's an honor.
We'll go over how me and him met in just a second, but we always like to start with a weekly check-in just to see how everybody's doing, what's been going on in the last week. Erica, what's up with you? How's life?
Life is good.
Okay.
Life is good. I mean,
I'm surprised you didn't say life is lifing.
I know. That's my
popular one.
go-to.
That's what she always says.
Life is lifing. But no, work has been draining.
Yeah.
Honestly, like I just got a new position.
Oh,
so
wow.
it'd be making me feel like, how long do I have until I retire?
Oh my God.
Like no,
Retired.
for
What in the
real.
world?
Wow.
That's
retirement now? What?
that's what I'm saying.
We're all very young here. You talk about retirement.
Yeah.
Man, you sound like my mom. That's what my mom said.
Okay. Other than retirement, what else has been going on this week? Well, actually, 2 weeks. We didn't record last week, did we?
I know.
Okay.
I went to the Poconos.
Really?
Oh, that's
Yeah, I
Okay.
know.
Is that a family thing or you?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was a family thing. It was nice. I want to go back, but I need to just get away by myself. So I'm like,
I heard that.
yeah.
Yeah.
But how's y'all's week?
It was okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll let our guests go first.
Oh,
Siobhan.
Yeah.
What's been going on? You've been on the road, brother.
Oh,
I know that much.
this week, man, it's been an interesting week.
Okay.
Good things, but at the same time, like I've been pushed to my limits, bro. Like,
I feel that.
yeah, I'm in an interesting position, just like in church leadership, business leadership, where it's like, I think when people see me, they think that I'm without storms or like things just come easy. And so it's like this weird dynamic where it's like everyone looks to me for answers and stuff like that, which like I feel like I'm kind of smart, know a thing or two.
Yeah.
But there also is like this subtle like, oh, everything is easy and he's always good. He's always good. But like, I mean, man, this week has been interestingly tough.
Yeah.
And not in like some dire way or nothing like that, but a lot of moving parts. Like I said, I've been traveling, trying to get stuff done. So I'm just, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah.
But good things are happening. So I mean, for me, it's just like as long as the work's getting done,
Yeah.
we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I feel that.
Let's see. It's been an interesting 2 weeks for myself.
Okay.
So I do coach flag football.
Oh,
And I won my first championship
hey,
Yeah.
last weekend. So that went well. We had to beat two teams that beat us this season. We got it done.
That's a tall task.
So that was a absolute blessing. I've been coaching for a while, so to get my first one was great. Let's see. Other than that, what's been going on these last 2 weeks? Just content,
Yeah.
recording and editing and work, and that's
More
about
editing.
it. Yeah.
Okay. Now my question is, are you the content creator that likes editing?
No.
Okay.
No.
Good. Okay.
No.
I'm with you.
Yeah. When the podcast budget gets there, it's going to be outsourced. Don't worry. Don't worry.
First
about
thing, right? First thing, smoking.
that. Yeah.
First thing.
Hey, until then, you do what you got to do.
I know that's right. I know that's
But,
right.
yeah. Other than that, been watching my Colorado football. Got to watch Dion out here.
Big facts. Big facts.
But that's about it, man. That's about it. Yeah.
That's good, man.
So let me add a bit of context to how me and is it okay to call you Trey? Do people call you Trey or do they call you Trev?
but Trev. So Trev.
Trev?
So
Okay.
so quick kind of
Yeah,
side
yeah.
note. So my name is actually pronounced Trevon,
Right.
but like growing up, so many people jacked it up.
Yeah.
So they would say Trayvon, Trevin, Trey, like just a whole bunch of renditions, like totally wrong. And like growing up, you know, especially being young, like you're not used to like having to correct that many people. So
Yeah.
it got to the point where I was just like, you know what, just go with Trey. Like y'all not gonna get it right. Like just call me Trey.
There's no hope.
Yeah, like at all. So literally like from middle school, probably all the way into like college, like I introduced myself as Trey.
Okay.
But looking back on it, that was totally a mistake.
Yeah.
But since, you know, you kind of leave college, you grow up and everything like that, it's kind of like, no, my name is Trevon. So my actual nickname is Trev.
Trev.
My name is pronounced Trevon.
Got
Okay.
it. Okay. So me and Trev met earlier this week, actually.
Literally, yeah.
So I actually record for other podcasts, as some people know now, and I was recording for one of my clients up in Maryland, and he was their guest. And I've actually I've recorded so many guests for them before, but I've never approached one of their guests to be on my show. So I'll just kind of add some context to why I did that.
Okay.
Obviously, I kind of heard your background, heard about you, just heard you speaking. And I just believe, man, there are certain moments in your life where when you find yourself in that moment, you can hear God saying, hey, you need to take notice. I crossed your path for a reason. Whatever that reason is, I have no idea.
Yeah.
But I just felt that. So I kind of felt God, you know, telling me, hey, just connect with them in whatever way that is. So I asked you if you wanted to come on the show, and you were like, yeah.
Yeah, no, listen,
Yeah.
man, and I agree with you. Like, I think it definitely was a God thing.
Okay.
You know, because even me going on other people's platforms and things of that nature was kind of a faith step for me.
Yeah.
Like there's strategy in it for me because I'm trying to, you know, get my name out there and all that different type of stuff. But I also knew that for me to do what I know God's called me to do, I have to do that. And so I think by me, even from my side of things, go out there thinking, you know what, okay, this will be the one pod. And then we connect, and obviously, you know, we connect on a ministry level and everything like that.
Yeah.
It's like, man, okay, like this guy's dope. So like even like just exchanging information was like the, you know, man, like, okay, it was kind of like a 2-for-1 at that point, right? Where we just connected. And then when you had the pod, it was like, wow, like that's even more like just confirmation. Like, okay, this is right. You know? So it definitely was a God thing. And I'm thankful, bro. Like really, I don't take it for granted.
For real. I agree with that sentiment, and it was kind of confirmed with me while we were recording because the other podcast is actually it's not a Christian podcast. It's just a secular podcast about entrepreneurship, which we'll get into with him in a second. But something you said during the podcast hit me when you were talking about fear.
Ooh,
and what was your little quote about fear?
Fear is a gift,
right?
Yeah, fear is a gift.
Oh.
Yeah. So he said that, and it was just like God was confirming things for me because what was our last episode about?
Fear.
Oh,
wow.
We literally the day before we had just recorded an episode about fear. So it was just kind of all in together there, and I was like, okay, well, I'll just ask him or reach out to him, give him my information, and we connected. So that's how things happen, and here we are. But before we move forward, I want to just open the floor for you to just kind of talk about yourself, what you do, your ministry, your background. Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, first and foremost, I'm a believer. I'm a follower of Jesus.
Yep.
And I mean, within that, for sure, right? Within that, I mean, I serve underneath my father at Hope Cathedral.
Yep.
He started that church in 2002, I want to say, something like that. It's been around. Fact check me if you want, but it's been around for 22 years. So we're celebrating our 22nd anniversary this coming Sunday.
Okay.
So I serve underneath him as a minister, a campus minister. We're launching a second campus for which I'll be providing leadership for.
Wow.
So I do that. That's like really my main thing. Outside of that, I am a leadership coach. I run a nonprofit called Craft Your Dream Inc., where I coach dreamers to achieve their biggest goals. And a lot of it is centered around self-leadership, just because, I've been fortunate to do some pretty cool things in my life. I'm played basketball overseas. I played college basketball and everything like that at the highest of levels. And I learned a lot of skills, like practical disciplinary skills, that I'm now really applying to leadership, applying to entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing the fruits of that labor. And so for me, it's like I came from a very, call it unlikely type background. Like when I look at just my basketball history and story, man, like I wasn't supposed to be like achieve all that I did.
Yeah.
But I know that was like my faith story, right? Where like that was an area where I knew, even before I really like built my relationship with God, that I was working like faith, and it was in that entire experience where it's like, okay, God kind of opened doors where he was able to really show me like, this is what I can do for your life. But also at the same time, I grew closer to him, not because of the stuff, not because of the things I achieved, but where it was like, each and every time a door opened for me in my basketball career, you know, it was when nobody believed in me. It was when it seemed like it was totally unlikely. It seemed like all odds were against me, but God just made a way.
Wow.
And he did it in such a way where it was like, I knew it was him. Like it wasn't, you know, the person, it wasn't the place, it wasn't the circumstance. It was literally like, oh no, God, like you did that.
Yeah.
You know? And so from that point, like from my really entire experience, like I'm kind of going over a lot, but that entire experience just made me want to do that for other people, you know, because for me growing up, especially like basketball was my dream, like my dream.
Yeah.
I sacrificed a lot for it to do all that I did. And so, you know, even in conversations with other people, I recognize like, while basketball was my dream, I believe, especially as believers, we all have a dream.
For sure.
You know, and that's tied to the fact that we all have a purpose.
Yep.
You know, the Bible talks how we're predestined, right? So there's things that God has already destined, pre-decided that he wants us to do here on the earth.
Yep.
And, you know, he's given us gifts, talents, and abilities to do it. But it's up to us to fulfill it.
For sure.
And so even when you think about just fear being a gift and all that different type of stuff, I mean, you look at anybody God used in the Bible in a mighty way, like fear was very much present after he gave the command.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so, you know, I pretty much just am able to be what I wish I had back then for other people. And I love it, man. Like I absolutely love it, just because I'm helping people not just like break those barriers, not just overcome the fear, but truly help them see who God sees them as.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not even so much like your traditional life coach of, oh, you know, find your best self and all that. Like, and that has its value and its place. But it is deeper when you understand, like, no, I'm created and I have a relationship with the creator.
Yeah.
And so it's deeper than just like, I'm the center of my universe. It's no, I'm submitted and I'm under authority and like, I'm here on assignment.
For sure.
And
That's
so
good.
for me, it takes like the purpose conversation just to a whole nother level. You see what I'm saying? So, yeah, not to be too long-winded, but that's pretty much just like what I'm all about. Where it's like, man, so when people come to me and they're like, oh, I want to do this, or I want to try this, or whatever, it's just like, all right, well, first, are you called to it? Then if you are, all right, then let's go for it. Like there's nothing, literally nothing to lose, particularly if we check that box of you're called to it.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because again, when I mean, the easiest example, when God called Moses, the first response was, no, it can't be me. It can't be me, right? And there's a lot of people who are living in that dynamic where it's like God called them to start a business. God called them to, you know, strive for a certain position in corporate or to start a family, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And the first response usually is, oh no, it can't be me, right? It's just like disqualification. So it's just helping people through that process to just say, no, like it's very possible. Like here's what that looks like practically.
Yeah.
Then you do with faith and faith without works, all that. So don't let me get to going, brother, because I can go. But
we're gonna let you go for sure. But yeah, I'm Eric. I'm gonna switch it up a little bit.
Okay.
I know that our topic for today was supposed to be one thing, but just listening to him talk, I'm feeling led to go in a different direction.
Let's
so I'm
do
gonna
it.
do that. A lot of what you were just saying, especially with like basketball and how you were talking about you shouldn't have been there and you didn't feel like you should have been there at different times. I want to go in a different direction today. I want to talk about disappointment. Because I'm sure there was a lot of disappointment involved in that. And not only just that, but like you talking about other people and they're kind of feeling that imposter syndrome, like not me, not me. I feel like there's a lot of disappointment involved in that. So
There
can we
definitely is.
can we unpack that and talk about that today?
Oh yeah, man. Absolutely. I mean, shucks, where do you want to start? I think
Let's just talk about the disappointment that, number one, comes from not feeling like maybe you're enough to do what God is, what you believe. Because I know for myself, when I accepted the calling on my own life, it was first that initial moment of like, oh my God, you know, God called me to do something. I'm special. I'm unique, all these different things.
Yeah.
And then not too long after that, it set in like, oh my God, how am I going to do that?
Yeah.
So can you just talk about that and maybe how it was for you? And
So I think, to your question, I think it really starts with reframing.
Yep.
This is when you deal with like just how you see the situation. So I do believe there is a level of power in recognizing the gap, really recognizing, like kind of having that moment of like, oh my God, okay, so like God did call me, but how in the world am I going to do that?
Right.
I do think there is a healthy level of power that comes from kind of just that realization, but I don't think it's healthy to stay there.
Yeah.
Right.
That's true.
And that's where I think again, for me, I'm big on just being practical because I think sometimes, at least in Christianity, you get a little too spiritual about stuff. The people that you say, "Hey, how you doing?" And it's like, "Oh man, the Spirit of God is moving through me. I'm blessed and highly favored." It's like,
I scripture right now.
right. All I said was, "How are you?" Like
I'm tired.
So right. But I do think, just to the point of disappointment, where it's like, once I acknowledge, like, okay, I am not enough to do this.
Yeah.
I do think there's a level of power in that. But then it's like, okay, now this is where I get to work faith. So it's like, while I may not think in my own natural mind that I'm able or that I'm qualified, if I truly have faith, which by my definition, the way my dad's taught it is that faith is basically being fully persuaded. Like, I'm fully persuaded that God called me to this thing. I'm fully persuaded that God is going to be the one to do it. Then at that point, I'm working faith by simply just doing the actions.
Yeah.
So it
That's
doesn't
true.
it doesn't even matter like what I think about it or how I feel about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And as more doors open, like, you'll start to kind of see the vision come to fruition. But especially like initially, it's just like, all right, I'm gonna just do it. Like, you know what I mean? That's where you deal with doing it scared, doing it, uncertain, and all those things. And I mean, for me, in my own experience, just at least with basketball specifically, when, for context, so I went to college at the University of Virginia.
Okay.
My first year wasn't on the team at all. That was like the first year in my 18 years of living, for the most part, that I was not a part of like a basketball team. And I knew that I wanted to walk on. And I tried out for that team that first year and didn't make it. And it was totally disappointing.
Yeah.
But I knew, I was like, yo, because I chose the school because I was like, I'm going to walk on the school. Like, I'm going to walk on there. So it's like, what do you do when you decide to go to the school, right? You make you're enrolled, you're there, and they give you a date. Here's the tryout. You prepare and everything like that. And then you find out they didn't take anybody. And so it's like, oh, wait a minute. I put like everything, like, at least, I mean, college, like, I put all my eggs in this basket. Like, what do you mean? Like, they didn't take anybody, much less like I'm not on the team. So that year for me was like, it was like an identity crisis, dealing with disappointment, frustration, all of it. But I also know, at least hindsight being 2020, that was really necessary for me, because that was where I started to understand, at least the thought was planted, that I'm bigger than basketball.
Yeah.
Now, I still genuinely cared about the basketball, still love the game. But that was the year where, to some degree, there was separation from who I was as a basketball player and just who Trevon was as a man.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not saying like my first year I just became like super wise and like it was just an easy process. But I'm just saying, like, that was the first time I just simply had to confront, who am I without basketball? And even then, like, I'm not even saying like even then I was like super spiritual and I was deep praying in tongues and everything. Like, I wasn't even
later.
Yeah, right. It was later for all that, right? It was later for all that. But again, it was just kind of like the beginning of it, and that's where, just the topic of disappointment, where I think when I look back, that disappointment was necessary.
Yeah.
So that was where at least that separation of identity started happening, just who I was as a person versus who I was with basketball. And so that's where that disappointment just became super necessary. And it honestly allowed me to pursue basketball even stronger, where, again, I was able to at least confront, okay, I have an idea of like who I am without basketball, but I still care about this thing.
Yeah.
And so I just honored the process. And so really from there, just to kind of make a long story less long, I went from not being on the team, I was a manager, then I was a walk-on, then I was a scholarship player.
Wow.
And it was just because, again, like, I grew as a player, I grew, as a basketball player, but who I was as a man grew too. Like, I went from, as a manager, just being as helpful, serving, like, I really learned how to serve.
Yeah.
Like, that's like, and I mean like real serving, not like the, oh, let me hold the door open for you real quick. I mean like the dirty work that will never get praised type serving. Like the type of servant leaderhood that like leadership that I should say that Jesus taught. You know what I'm saying? Like washing of the feet type.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that level. You feel me? But I learned that, just my second year. Then from there, it went from, I started to step in as a spiritual leader where I was leading Bible studies, those following 2 years. And so it's like all stemming from that moment of disappointment where I wasn't on the team at all.
Yeah.
But again, I'm convinced now more than ever, even as I think back to it, it's like, I wouldn't be where I am now. I also wouldn't have been where I was, my last year, if not for that disappointment.
Yeah.
So that's why, just to kind of bring it all full circle, that reframing, I think, is so necessary.
Yeah. I mean, we can go down a rabbit hole
No,
with
seriously.
that there, but
Yeah.
but yeah. So the disappointment, it's necessary, and I know at different times in my life where I was disappointed, it was much of the same. It wasn't until you got out of it and then you look back at it and you say, okay, that disappointment was actually necessary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Erica, I want to come to you for a second.
Yeah.
Have you experienced that?
Definitely. I was going to ask a question. So, knowing that you were faced with those disappointments, what were you feeling? Like, how did you get through that? Like, because I know when you go through that, there is times where you might get like super, super discouraged. How did you work through that?
Yeah. So for me, it was kind of twofold. Like I just kind of entered this like just feel it out type of phase, just
Okay.
because it was just so new to me. Like
Yeah.
the idea of not having teammates, the idea of not having like practice, the idea, like just my overall rhythm to life was just like, wait a minute, like I don't have to get up early. Like I can
That would knock me off.
like it just threw me off. So like for me, it was kind of just like, all right, well, there was a level of acceptance of kind of like, well, I can't change it. Like I'm here, so it's like, you know, I tried partying, like because again, to that point, I wasn't going out. I was doing
Yeah.
like the traditional what Kobe taught us all to do. Like, you know what I mean? First one there, last one to leave. Like that was just my mentality the whole time. So I kind of was just dropped in this thing of like, wait, I can go out. Like I can like drink. I
things.
can like
Yeah.
be like
A whole lot of change immediately.
Yeah, it's just like I can do like what normal college people
do.
do. Like it was really weird. So like honestly, I kind of used that time to, I guess you could say, mask the anger. Like because again, I was frustrated, I was disappointed. It was just like, what in the world's going on? So I kind of like kept myself busy,
Okay.
just so I didn't necessarily have to really confront it. But also at the same time, once I really reached a point, and I think this will answer your question. Once I reached a point of like, this is what it is, and I have a decision of either I'm gonna go for it again or I'm not. And I made the decision to go for it again. At that point, I was just 10 toes on it. Listen, I'm running it back.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact, like all my classmates looked at me like I was nuts. I know for a fact that I was talked about. I know for a fact.
It is what it is.
But again, it was just like, no, like I knew like why I was here.
Yeah.
So I would have felt like I betrayed myself if I just like decided not to go for it anymore at like the first sign of like adversity. You know what I mean? Just because again, like I put everything into it. So it's like, nah, like I gotta.
You're here
like,
for a purpose.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like this is too important to me just to say I tried once.
Yeah.
Like, you know, so
I wanna jump into that.
Yeah.
Because I kind of remember where I wanted to go with it, and I heard it while you were just talking, but that disappointment when you know God has told you something, or you know you've been called to a thing, but it does not look like what you thought it was about to look like.
boy.
You're going through it and you're like,
something right there.
God, you told me I was going to get to point C, but I'm at point A right now, and it is not looking anything like point C. How am I going to get there? Why is it not looking like what you told me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dog. Like one of my verses that really got me through that entire like I'll put this verse like in my hall of scriptures. Like, I think got me through college was in Isaiah. I forget the exact verses, but it's like that he'll renew our strength so we can soar like eagles. So we can walk and not
Isaiah,
grow,
that's
walk
my
in faith.
favorite
Like,
scripture right
that
there.
thing right
Isaiah
there.
40.
Oh
Isaiah 40.
my God, that thing right there.
When I tell you,
I remember I had like a Word doc and I typed that out, just all red. Just like I looked at that every day. Like, cause I mean, again, like I was learning how to serve. I was just in these different spaces, even when I was on the team, where it's just like, man, like this don't quite look. Cause again, Mike, I knew God called me there. I'm like, man, I'm gonna be here to play. And so as a walk on, as you know, you might not, but like, you ain't playing.
Yeah.
Like that's at least, but that the norm is like you ain't touching the court. Like, no,
Right.
go
sit down.
Yeah, like go sit down somewhere. Right? But in my mind, I'm like, I'm gonna beat these odds. Like I bet you I do.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna bust all y'all in practice. I ain't gonna get a coach an answer, right? But again, obviously looking back, you get enough information. Like there's money involved. Like that was, But even to accomplish all that I did, it was just like, yo, God called me to it. So I'm not about to stop. Like that's crazy. I just and again, we're talking about my story and stuff like that, but how many people like experience that in their own lives?
Yeah.
No, for real.
You know what I mean? Where it's like God called you to be with somebody, God called you to go do something or whatever, and it's like the first sign of trouble is just like, oh, this doesn't look how God said it, so
I'm gonna give up.
I must have missed
Yeah.
God or whatever, right?
I gotta admit, man, I gotta get better in that area when it comes to dealing with other people,
I
because
feel that.
that irritates me so bad.
Yeah.
Because I have that thing in me, which I understand everybody doesn't have that, but I have that if I perish type. That I'm just gonna keep going. I don't care.
Yeah.
And I hear other people talking sometime, and it's just like every little obstacle just brings everything to a halt for them.
Do you know what I find that helps? Like just the mental kind of response when I encounter people like that?
Yeah.
I view it as an opportunity to be like Jesus and help them grow.
Yeah.
Like not necessarily like try to treat them as if like I'm better than them. I know better. Like not that, but where it's like, no, I think when those types of people, it's a vision problem. Like there's the vision isn't clear enough to them, or the end goal isn't important enough to them. So like you could take a business, for example, right? As the business owner, you see the vision. It's clear. So like because the vision is so clear to you and it matters, it's personal to you, and you know God's called you to it, you're going to run through brick walls. You're going to run through anything for it, right? But let's say you hire somebody. Their vision ain't your vision.
Yep.
Even if they might see the vision, it ain't as clear. So first sign of trouble, their willingness to endure, their willingness to go through it, it's not going to be what it is for you, right? And so even when you encounter other people like that, I learned where it's like, okay, there's an opportunity for growth that I can be a part of for them. Yeah. Just because, again, particularly if they're a believer, like especially if they're a believer, it's like, oh no, like
we can do this.
Yeah, because you know what frustrates me sometimes. We on the Christ Culture podcast, so I can kind of say this. You know what I mean? It's frustrating when people will acknowledge the great God that they serve, but it doesn't show up in their everyday actions.
That's one of my pet peeves.
Like, I would rather you say that you're unsure about what God can do.
Exactly.
And like you're making the same decisions as opposed to you can scream, shout, holler, and everything like that about how God's more than able and everything like that we love to sing. But
you gonna get me all right.
With that deep breath.
You know what I'm saying? But like you in a position where you know God put you there, you know it's a faith step, you know like everything is ordained for whatever it is, and you still retreat. Like don't because then it's just like you putting God you putting you putting mud on God's name. No.
Yeah.
That's one of my things too, man, is I always ask people before and after a situation starts, did God change? Is he not the same God he was 2 minutes ago before that happened?
Talk about it.
So I say that all the time. One of my favorite responses to people is that God is sovereign. Everything that just happened is still in his control, regardless of what it looks like.
Right.
Like even with the election that just happened, a lot of people were disappointed, upset. They were lashing out, acting crazy the next day. And I'm like, God is still the same God he was yesterday. Like, you believe in him, right?
Right. Like what changed? and again, I'm not saying you can't have your opinion. I'm not saying you can't have, you know what I mean? Like honor the processes in this system that, because again, the government is on his shoulders. So like, do your civic duty and all that jazz. I'm not saying you don't do that.
For sure.
But it's like, wait a minute. I thought you said God is first.
That's what I'm saying.
I thought, like what?
Yes.
What you, like, how did one notification all of a sudden just change how you believe? Like you know what I'm saying? And so again, I think even like we're talking about the person that's disappointed. I think even on the other side, where it's like, yo, even if you happy with how it went, all of a sudden
that's
you
still not the final authority.
You feel
not
me?
at
Like,
all.
and again, I don't want to know. You know, you gonna clip this, so don't clip this up and put me out there looking crazy. But I'm just saying, where it's like, no, like, yes, we honor the structure in which society is built, right? We honor the rules and the policies and all that jazz. That is important. But at the end of the day, as a believer now, because again, I'm not one of those believers that feels like every person who's not in Christ should behave like, no, they're not in Christ, so they're not gonna follow the rules, right? But every believer, if you believe that God is the foundation, then behave like it, talk like it, walk like it. It should be seen.
Have a confidence.
This
in that.
this is the fruits.
Yeah.
Of the spirit. Right?
Talk about it. Talk about it.
So that makes me want to ask y'all something. So like you were talking about, when you have those people that you know, like they just may not see the vision as clear as you, is there a point where you're just like, okay, I'm trying to put everything out there. you're not, this is something like the person is just stuck. They're at that point, they're not wanting to help themselves.
Yeah. I think it's a really good question. I think it depends on the relationship.
Yeah.
So I would judge it off of how much tough love can I give, because if I have to have like a hard conversation and say like just straight to it, then I got to do it.
Yeah.
Right. But if it's someone that we might not just have the relationship for me to be that real,
Right.
or I don't even want to say that real, but like just be that raw, that straightforward. Then at that point, I just kind of look at it as, all right, I just got to lead by example. And if you see it, you see it. If you don't,
If you don't,
well,
then yeah.
you don't. You know, that's
Pray for
just,
them
you
at
know,
that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I'll say, and what I was going to add to what you said earlier as well, is just that one of the things that I've learned, especially in different leadership positions, is when individuals get to that point, number one, a lot of them don't know or don't understand the concept of having to go through a certain amount of suffering or a certain amount of obstacles in order to get to where they're trying to get to.
No, that's true.
That's really
They
good.
believe that when they receive a vision, or when they start to go after something, that if the path is not clear, then it's the wrong path.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I always try to share with people is my own personal testimonies, and tell them like, hey, yeah, I wanted to get here. Yeah, I had the vision for this. Yes, God called me to that, but there were things that I had to go through before I got to that.
To
So
build your
yeah,
character.
yeah, exactly. So I try to share that with them. And then I try to encourage people, because one of the things that I learned through my own personal journey that I went through years ago was I had no idea. And this goes back to what you said about understanding how God sees you. I had no idea how strong of a person that I was until I went through a situation that tested my strength to
That's
that
good.
level.
Wow.
That's good.
Wow. Yeah.
So I try to tell people that may have not gone through a situation like that yet, that hey, you're going to have those moments in your life where you're going to find out what you're truly about. And just because it seems tough, there's way more in you than you
Than
know,
you think.
Yeah.
than you think. There's a whole nother level that you can get to. My middle school wrestling coach used to always say this thing to us. Whenever we would get tired, he would always tell us, your body will go way further than you think it will. So just keep pushing it.
Facts.
He was like, if you can convince yourself, use your mind to convince yourself, your body will keep up, but you have to be willing to push through that. And so that's something that I
good.
try to
That's really good.
relay to others. Yeah.
That's really good.
Honestly.
One of the things that the story in the Bible that came to my mind as you were describing that was when Jesus was sleeping at the bottom of the boat,
Oh,
and the
man.
disciples woke him up,
Yeah.
and he got mad because he was like, "Oh, you've little faith. Like, where's
Why
your
y'all
faith? Like
tripping
that was
for?"
right. Like that was your storm to calm.
Yes.
Dang, yeah.
Like, and of course we say like, man, like God is the one that, you know, Jesus calmed the storms and everything like that. But like Jesus chastised them, saying like that was your storm to calm. Like y'all shouldn't have
Yeah.
been tripping. And I think it just adds to your point where it's
Yeah.
like when you understand how God sees you and who God sees you as, the disappointments and the obstacles that you face, you just have a totally different perspective on them. Where again, I'm not saying you're not gonna cry. I'm not saying you won't, you know, experience rejection or any of the negative emotions that come. But that's when you think about greater is he that's in me. Like it's like at some point that mentality has to take over. At some point,
For sure.
that has to be the way in which you think and the place in which you make decisions. And again, it takes time to develop yourself there. But I think ultimately, especially as a believer, like that's where you have to get. Like that's what it looks like to really overcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely that. One thing too that I feel like people can skip over is where in the Bible it talks about long suffering. Like us as believers, we're gonna have visions. We're gonna have like places that God has called us to go.
Yeah.
But during the process, we're gonna suffer.
Yeah.
So even like in church and different things like that, I do feel like the hard things need to be talked about more.
Yeah.
So we're going to have long suffering. How do you get through that suffering? You're going to go through different things mentally. You're going to like be faced with these different things, but you're going to suffer.
And that just reminds me of how, you know, the Bible talks about rejoicing in your suffering.
Right.
And
Yeah.
one of the things that I'm learning as I get older and as I go through different periods of quote unquote suffering is that it's almost cyclical. It's almost a cycle that you continually go through in your life.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I really struggled with and just was disappointed with was the last cycle that I went through like that. I learned so much and I felt like I was at a certain level. And then when I found myself going through it again, there was disappointment. Like, I thought I already
I just
learned
I just
all
went
these
through
things
this.
before.
Yeah.
Why is this happening again?
Yeah.
Have you gone through some of those cycles, man?
Oh man, yeah. For me, it was financially. That
Yeah.
was my.
Feel
was-
that.
yeah, man. Like, there's something to. I think at least for men, especially, God teaches his best lessons through money with men. I really do.
Why
I
is that?
feel like,
Yeah.
well, because I think societally, like, there's a pressure for men to provide, right? And I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
absolutely that there is Bible that backs that up and stuff. But
Yeah.
let's just talk practically. Like, men want to make money.
Yeah.
And I think when God is trying to get the attention of men, for the most part, now this is me totally generalizing, but he does it through money.
Yeah.
And so I've experienced where it's like, you think there's about to be a certain amount of money in the account, you check, it's a totally different number. Matter of fact, it's not even just different. There's a hashtag. It's overdraft. Like you see what I'm saying? Like,
You said there's a hashtag.
yeah. Like there's a dash next to it, and you like, wait a minute, low balance decisions to make. Like, oh my god, like, and you don't even have a payday in sight. Like that's, you know what I'm saying? So I've experienced that. Like and it's been so many times, like to that cycle point where that honestly is how I really just, I don't want to say was led to start tithing the way I should.
Yeah.
Because I do think, at least not necessarily we're going to park here with money, but I think sometimes I can't practice insanity. Like financially, at least financially, and this applies to other areas, but it's like, if I'm not tithing, I'm not working kingdom principles, I'm broke. Trying to figure it out myself. I'm doing all the hustling, grinding, and everything like that. Working every business strategy, working, even working a job, a 9 to 5. I know when the money coming in. I know the check. I even might have a little budget, whatever. And I'm still not making it. Or I'm frustrated with just my financial position. It's like at some point, particularly like if you know that tithing's right. Like that's the key in this. Like if you know tithing's right. Now, if you don't know, you don't know, right? Cool. You can't do better if you don't know better. But if you know better and you ain't doing it, and you see like what you doing ain't working.
Yeah.
At some point, you just got to say, yo, I got to try, like,
do something different.
Right. Just do something different. And so, that disappointment for me came in a lot of ways financially, where it's like, man, like, I can't do that. Like, I want to go out to eat, but I can't. I want to maybe take a vacation, but I literally cannot. I like, literally a bunch of stuff. Like, man, I want a full tank of gas, but I literally cannot. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, for me, it was just like when you experience that many disappointments in that cycle, like you described, and I think that was masterful how you described it, where it's like, yo, we got to do something different. Yep. And I believe for the believer, that's where it's like, yo, I have to invite God in on the situation. Like, how should I be doing this? And for me, just financially, it was, okay, let's start tithing like for real. Yeah. Not like on and off, not like really like, no, let's tithe for real like we're supposed to. And, let's just work this principle because clearly what I'm doing ain't working. Yeah. And that's just one area. But yeah, I think, when you look at the cycles of disappointment and you really think about why the disappointment's coming, because sometimes the disappointment ain't always a God thing. Sometimes it's just poor stewardship. Sometimes it's just you.
Man,
you know what I'm saying?
Facts.
Ain't that the truth?
That is
yeah, like
so true.
I think even in like we talked, like I said earlier, like the reframe is like I have to be honest about like, yo, why is this disappointment even here? Yeah. Because is this disappointment here because I didn't do what I was supposed to do? Is this disappointment here because I was doing everything I'm supposed to do? And I think that's where, I'm on the Christ Culture podcast, right? So it's like, is this disappointment here because I've been sinning and trying to get away with it? Yep. Like, you see what I'm saying? Or like trying to convince myself that it's not that bad? Like, these are the things that we have to evaluate whenever disappointment comes. For sure. And so it's like, if I'm disappointed and I know, I've been going to websites I shouldn't be going to, or I've been just doing things I shouldn't be doing as a Christian, that's what I got to change. I don't need to necessarily look at God.
Facts, yeah.
Like the vessel is not right to be used. So I got to make changes.
It's on you.
You know what I'm saying? It's totally on me. So those are the things that, at least when disappointment comes, it's like I have to examine just all of it. Like my role in all this. And then if I know I've been living right, not saying perfect, but just I'm living right, the confidence that I have in the disappointment, I think that's where you deal with the process of, your faith being perfected and all those different things, because it's like, okay, God, I've been doing everything you told me to do to the best of my abilities. I ain't perfect, but I also know I ain't living foul. Yeah. And this obstacle is here. So God, you must have this here for a reason. So there's just the approach to it is totally different.
That's good.
Yeah. I want to First of all, I want to agree with your sentiment about God getting men's attention through money. Yeah, he does that. He does that. He does that.
Right.
That's a good way to get our attention really quick, especially when you have a family. Real quick.
Word.
But one of the things I actually heard you talk about this on the other podcast, and I want to just get into it for a minute because I think it's very, very important, especially when it comes to disappointment. One of the biggest disappointments a lot of people have is when they see other individuals flourishing who may not necessarily be, in our case, Christian or a believer, or may not be in the church or may not be making the best decisions in their life, but they see them flourishing.
Yep.
And one of the things that you mentioned that a lot of people don't know is God does not say, hey, to work my principles in the Bible, you got to be a Christian.
Not at all.
He doesn't say that, especially when it comes to finances. He said, just do this and then this will happen.
Principles work regardless of who's using them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just the truth. And I think sometimes, as Christians, we get too much in our bubble. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because it's you can take something, I can't even think of an example off the top of my head, but it's like you can take something from another culture, another town, another city, and it can work for you. Yeah. Like exactly. I like sushi. Like that doesn't mean like sushi's off limit. Like it doesn't.
You get the recipe.
Right. I get the recipe. I can make sushi. Right. So, and the same is true. And that, I don't know if that was the best example, but the principle even there, the concept is true where it's like, hey, the godly principle is sow and you shall reap. That's it.
Yeah.
There is no qualification on that. If you give, you shall receive. Then you deal with the power of the measure. Whatsoever a man measures out, so shall he receive.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's just the principle. Yeah. So it's irregardless of who's using it. So I think even that when believers see other people thriving in these different industries or spaces or, getting things that's like, wait a minute, they didn't even read the Bible and they getting this and everything. All that's a distraction. Yeah. Because it's like, well, if God is doing that for them and they don't even have a relationship with him, how much more would he do for you if you actually work the principle?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And that to me is a people thing where it's like, we'd much rather do the judging and do the how convey and everything like that, as opposed to turning the mirror and saying, no, what am I doing
wrong?
Right. Yeah. And again, it's a hard thing to really like turn the mirror on yourself and have like that real look in the mirror conversation. Like, I need to change, but it's super necessary. Like, cause that's the version of you God's going to use. Yeah. Like God's going to use the version where you can really be straight up and honest. Like, God, I'm frustrated. God, I'm disappointed. God, I'm angry. God, I'm broken. God, I'm hurting, whatever. Like God's going to then meet you there. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know for me, like, probably in 2019, probably the roughest year of my life, there was a portion, like the beginning part of that year, when I was literally like trying to be Superman, when I was broken. Like as a man, I was broken. And I kept trying to go to God like Superman, like, oh God, you're the mighty one, and you my King of Kings, Lord of Lords, I serve you. But inside I was broken. And God's like, I ain't doing nothing with that. Like what?
Like,
no.
be honest with me.
Right. Come to me. So, once I made the decision to say, all right, God, like, I'm for real frustrated. Like I'm for real. I'm missing some things on this. And I was just honest. Yeah. Like just fully transparent with God. That's when he started meeting me where I was. That's when he really started opening doors and revealing and encouraging me and everything like that. To where my brokenness, he healed me, made me whole. Now I'm the version that you see today. Yeah. But that all stemmed from just like being honest and not, trying to focus on, what they got going on and everything like that. It's like, no, let me work these principles. How can I work these principles for my life? I see that principle's working for other people. Like, I'm gonna observe, right? I'm not gonna like isolate myself. Yeah. But that ain't my concern. And I'm not about to let it distract me.
Don't compare yourself.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's the one main thing that we literally do all the time. It's just, especially with other Christians, like compare yourself where your faith is at. It's not a competition.
Facts.
At all.
Yeah. Yeah. It says in Galatians, I want to say 6 actually. Yeah. Galatians 6, I think verse 7, where it talks about basically like, if you handle your business, I'm paraphrasing, but if you handle your business, you won't even have time to pay attention to what other people got going on.
That's the message version right there.
Yeah. Like
TPT.
So I want to stay on this principles things for just a second. Just talking about how the principles can be worked by anybody.
Yep.
And there's a scripture that talks about, giving unto my storehouse. And then it basically goes on to say, test me in this. This one of the only times in the Bible I hear God say, you can test me on this.
Right.
And I just want to reiterate that for people that, hey, you can learn these principles. You can open your Bible, you can learn them, or you can go to somebody who knows the Bible maybe more than you and listen to them and learn these principles and work them in your life.
Right.
That also does not mean that you can trick the principles. And I want to talk about that for a second, because you can't be making $100,000 a year. You're giving a $20 tithe every 2 weeks. And you're saying, how's things not multiplying in my life?
Right.
Yeah. So can you speak to that for a second?
Listen, God is a jealous God. He don't play. And I think, especially when we're talking about finances, it's like finances, I think, are one of the easiest ways to tell if somebody's really giving their heart to God. Because if you truly believe that God is your provider, then it does not matter who signs your checks. It does not matter when the Stripe payment comes in. It literally does not matter.
Yep.
God is the one that provides. And
That's
if you trust the
good.
provider, then he's going to do exceedingly abundantly above, because he's the source. Like, it's like, I'm not going to focus on the distributor. I'm gonna go to the source. So if I'm trusting God that he's the source, it doesn't matter. Like, I know he's going to provide, but that's a confidence that comes from working the principle. So for somebody who, they work the principle for, let's say, a year, and then they see the increase and all of a sudden they change up, it's going to stop working.
Yes.
It is. And you're going to be stuck, and you're probably going to end up in a worse situation just because now you're trying to violate a principle.
Exactly.
Like, but then you're going to be looking like, God abandoned me. God, why you do this to me? And it's like, no, you stop working the principle. And God has set this thing up, his kingdom, in a way where it's going to work how it's going to work. Like, there is no workaround. There is no negotiation. Like, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So if there's anybody out there that's like, oh, well, I saw God work, but then, I stopped tithing. I saw God work, then I stopped serving. I saw God work, then I stopped even going to church. And I became distant, but then, I'm still expecting him to show up. God ultimately wants a relationship with us.
Yeah.
And that's the key. So God's not blessing us because he wants to bless us so we can have a nice car or a big bank account or nothing like that. God wants to bless us simply because we are in relationship with him. And because we're putting the relationship first. Again, we're proving to him that we can be trusted with more.
Yeah.
And so that's when you deal with just stewardship over what he's given us. And so, that's part of the principle. Like Luke 16:10 talks about, if you're faithful with little things, then you'll be made ruler over much.
Yep.
And so that's just pretty much the situation where it's like, hey, regardless of how much you're given, as long as you steward well with what you have, which, again, we're talking about in the lens of finance, but the same is true with your relationships. The same is true with your physical health. The same is true with your mindset, the whole nine. You have to steward well whatever it is that God's given you.
Yeah.
And instead of being frustrated that it's not bigger or better than it is, just steward it well.
Yeah.
And then you'll be working the principle, because, again, that's how God set this thing up.
That's good.
Yeah. One of the things I heard in a message not too long ago, and I've been praying it in my prayers for a while now, is that when I go through these seasons of disappointment, that I don't want the season to be wasted. So my prayer to God is, don't let this season be wasted. And much like you were just saying, God, what in this season is it that you want me to see? And a lot of times it's you.
Yeah.
He wants you to see you in the fact that you're not working those principles the correct way, that you're not living up to the standard that he set for you. So yeah, I think a lot of times when we deal with those disappointments, whatever area it is in your life, a good first place to look is yourself.
Yeah. And to add on to your point too, I do think, because again, God wants the relationship first. So like, I do think there's some people who you're going through this cycle of disappointment simply because God's like, I want you to come back to me. And the only way I get your attention is when I have you going through trouble.
Yeah.
That's the only time. So yeah, you're going to keep bumping your head and everything like that, just because I want you to turn your heart to me. And as soon as you turn your heart to me, you watch what I do.
Yeah.
Test me in this, right? To what you said. So I think there's, and everything that we're talking about is just like the value of disappointment, right? Where there is, again, don't let this season be wasted. Like, don't let this situation be a waste, because I ain't trying to learn the lesson again. I'm not trying to go through it again. Like, whatever it is I'm supposed to get out of this,
Let me get it now.
let me get it now so I can move on.
God definitely cherishes the relationship with you. The story that I always go to in the Bible is the children of Israel in the desert. And I always ask myself, God, you know how long they were going to be there. Why didn't you just give them enough food for the trip?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I'm going to give them manna on a daily basis. Why?
Daily
because I
bread.
want them to have to go collect the manna, make the bread out of the manna, and then come back to me the next day for more.
That's right.
Character building.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's for that relationship with him. He wants you to come back to him and be close to you. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's real good.
Wow. we unpacked quite a lot.
We did. That's what I'm saying. This is my favorite podcast. I ain't gonna lie. This is awesome.
Yeah, so we're gonna have to get you back in the future so
Definitely.
we can hit some more stuff.
Oh yeah.
But I think it's time for SOS.
Oh man.
You ready?
So you've seen some SOS clips.
I have. This is gonna be interesting. I seen the water balloon one. I'm interested to see what y'all got for me today.
Okay, you a minister, you gonna be all right.
Yeah.
You a preacher.
They tell you keep a word, keep a word, keep a word.
As my mother would say, anything will preach.
Anything.
That's what she anything will preach. Who wants to go first today?
Our guest.
You want to put him on the spot like that?
We throwing our guest on the spot.
right.
Let me get the timer.
All right.
You got the timer?
What's my
Sure.
topic? Do I get my topic first?
Yeah, I'm gonna give you your topic right before I tell you to go. You don't get time to think.
I don't get no time to think.
Nah.
At least attach it to a story. I don't get a hook. I don't get a. Oh man.
That ain't how we do it here.
Oh my.
You got this.
God.
You're on the spot.
You
All
got
right,
this.
y'all.
All right, let me see.
Let's see.
Your topic for today is going to be. Let me throw you a bone.
My heart beating.
Your topic for today is fire.
Fire.
In 3, 2, 1, go.
Jesus' purpose was to come down here on this earth and save us. And as a believer, as a Christian, he knew that we would face the world that hated us, face a world that rejected us, face a world that did not want to see God's glory here on the earth. And so often as Christians, it's easy to believe that we are supposed to only be peaceful. We are only supposed to be kind. But what we need to know is that we serve a God that is all powerful. We serve a God that is above the world. He's overcome the world. And so when he's given us the helper, which is the Holy Spirit, we need to know that he came by form of fire over everyone when he departed first in the disciples. And then as the disciples went out and made more disciples, that we have a power within us that came by way of fire that will not only help you be a Christian, but also help you overcome the world that's in front of you.
And you were nervous.
Shoot, that's what I'm
you
talking
were
about.
Is that all right?
Bro.
Oh my God. Oh my Lord.
Oh, wow.
Fall out on the floor.
Oh God. That was a lot. Now, do I get to choose your topic or something?
Yeah, you can choose mine.
Oh,
you want to
my
go second or last, Erica?
Let Erica go second.
Oh,
Yeah.
you feel some type of
I'm
way.
gonna, we're gonna let the guests pick both of our topics.
Yeah, I
for
need
today.
Okay.
What I'm gonna do with you. You know, you did fire.
You now just let me a little disclaimer. You can get as crazy as you want. A couple
Don't
weeks ago,
say that.
I got toilet tissue,
Toilet tissue.
so you can get as crazy as you want.
Oh my God.
Wait, who gave you toilet? Why did you? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
You know, I'm gonna throw you a bone. He threw me a bone. I'm gonna throw you a bone. Yours is gonna be oil.
Well,
In
okay.
3, 2, 1, go.
So when God has called us, he has placed a unique oil on each and every one of our lives. So each one of us have a special anointing that we carry that we're supposed to disperse to other people. So if we try to go and pick up something else that somebody else has, that oil may not mix with ours. Or if we try to go out and we're giving too much of something and we're not receiving oil, then we're pouring too much of our oil back out into somebody else. So we also need to make sure that we're staying connected to the one that fills our cup with oil. So this oil, basically, it's just like WD-40. When you greasy or like when you feel a little rusty, then you go and you have to go and collect that oil. You got to make sure that you stay connected, though.
That's good.
Amen.
That was all right. Yeah, that was good.
Okay. You gonna do the timer?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh God.
Let's see. What
I'm
you about
nervous
to
now.
do?
No, those
No.
don't.
Your topic. See, I'm not even like I'm creative, but like this type of stuff, I'm like, ugh, you're mad basic. But this should be good. Your topic is. Eric, you good with the timer? Let me know when you're ready for the timer.
All right.
All right. Your topic is wind.
Wind.
And go.
When you go outside and sometimes it can be a sunny day and the skies can be clear and you can think it's going to be a breeze for me to get to where I need to get to because I don't see any bad weather. But all of a sudden when you start walking, you can feel the contrary winds blowing against you. And those winds can be pushing you in a direction that you do not want to go, but you have to walk against them. Now, what you don't know about the wind is, although it is inconvenient, the wind actually makes you stronger. It makes your legs stronger. It makes your lungs stronger when you have to walk against the wind to get to where you're going. A lot of the times God will put you in situations where you're in those contrary winds just because he's trying to make you stronger, not even necessarily to get to where you're trying to get to. So when you feel those winds blowing in your life, hunker down, put on a nice jacket, and keep going, because what doesn't kill you will make you stronger. Amen.
Pretty good. Pretty good, Doc. That could preach, Doc. That could preach. That could preach.
He said the winds will make your lungs stronger.
Words.
I got asthma.
Not asthma.
Oh my goodness.
Man, this was a good conversation, man.
It
I'm so
was.
glad we had you on the show.
Yeah, thank you. Really. Thank y'all really for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Let everybody know where they can find you on social media.
Man, so you can follow me on Instagram at Trev Gross Jr. You can also follow my organization at Craft Your Dream Inc. And that's connect with me. We host a leadership growth conference every single year, where it's dedicated towards ambitious professionals, entrepreneurs, and leaders to create vision for the new year.
Yep.
So we do that. We got some programs that are coming out. I have my podcast that drops every first and third Monday. Yeah. So doing everything we can to just help people grow.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so listen, connect with me. I'd love to connect with you, and let's grow.
Absolutely. What a pleasure it's been. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Follow us on all the platforms. Leave some comments. Let us know how you're liking the episodes that are going on. And if there's nothing else, then we'll see you guys next week. Same time, same place.
Yep.
Awesome.
Peace.